Uh, oh, that worked. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Yes, so I'm excited about introducing you to this tool of mine called recomposition. This will be a little different from the average poetry workshop. We'll get onto that in just a moment. But first of all, not sure if you don't want to do this, that's okay. But I thought we might be interested to it might be interesting to hear from a few voices here. What I'd like you to consider is if you wouldn't mind sharing with us something that have taken apart in your life. You can also tell us where you're calling from. So let me give you a couple of examples from my own life. I live in Sharon, as I said. I've been here since 2021. And when I first moved here, my wheelbarrow broke. And there was already a broken wheelbarrow at the house. So I managed to disassemble both wheelbarrows and then take parts of them and create a working wheelbarrow out of the bits of two, which I'm quite proud of because I'm a very not practical person. So it was quite an achievement for me. So I've taken apart two wheelbarrows and made another one. So you could do a practical taking apart thing like that. You could also choose something more abstract or kind of inward, if you like. I could say also that some time ago, I took apart a great deal of my kind of psychology and emotions through a process of therapy and thinking in my 20s, which was fundamental and very important and allowed me to reconstruct a different version of myself, a happier one. So that's a lot less practical, but more important, I guess, than the wheelbarrows. Well, somewhat, maybe sometimes. So
Depends on what you're carrying.
it depends what you're carrying. Yes, yeah, yeah.
Emotional baggage or real baggage.
Maybe the wheelbarrow can do both. Yeah. Hey, Linda, as you've spoken up, do you mind picking on you to go next? Do you have anything for us?
All I can think is I spend all my time trying to keep old things together. I can't think of anything I've taken apart at all. Honestly, I'll just have to think about that some more.
Okay,
Sorry.
no problem. What have you taken apart, folks?
I guess I've modified
Yeah.
recipes. Sorry.
Ah, great. Yes, that works. Yeah, taking apart a recipe and making it work with your ingredients or your style or your vision of how it would taste at the end. Absolutely, totally works. Yes. Anna, yeah.
I've taken apart, like when I was 12 or when I was 15, I had a day by day journal. And having unearthed them recently, I found that I only got through 2 or 3 pages. I only did two or three entries. So what I did was I pulled out those pages from the old, very old journal so that I would have the writing, and I pitched the other ones. So I that's something.
Mm-hmm. Like taking little snippets of yourself to hold on to. Yeah, cool. Thank you. Kim, go ahead.
Well, I've only taken apart an IKEA closet physically that I can remember, but I've also taken apart my idea of family, more importantly.
Cool. Interesting. Thank you for leaving that intriguing as well. Suzanne.
I feel like there are lots of things I've taken apart, and I'm having trouble thinking of any of them other than we have a little water fountain for our cats, and every couple of weeks you gotta take it apart and like get out all the cat hair, and the gunk, and clean it out and put it back together again.
And then it works better. Yes.
Exactly.
Thank you. Doris.
So I realize as you asked the question that I'm a therapist, so I help clients take apart their family history traumas from their current life so that they don't keep the past in the present.
Yeah, there's a way of not repeating those cycles, circles.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Very important work. Yes. Linda, you got one. Another one.
Oh, no, I was scratching.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
You were really enthusiastically waving at me there. No. Careful with the scratching. Yes. Cool. Those are great. Thank you. Anybody else before we move on? Yes, Joan.
Um, I have been taking apart a patch of this invasive plant in my parents' backyard, and replacing it with native plants. But it's been very slow because it's been very stubborn. So it just keeps on coming back and I keep on removing it. And
good for you. Yes, we have very large patches of stuff that were allowed to grow wild by a previous owner, and I try every spring, but they're too big for me. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah,
our
sympathize.
yard is luckily very small.
Great. Well, that's all very interesting. Yes. So we've got from small things like the cat waterer, but nonetheless essential to the cats, to huge things like psychology. I've run this workshop once before, and people were saying things like, "Well, it took apart my marriage," that kind of thing. So we do actually take apart more than we might think. I mean, we tend to think about building, but I guess my point is that when we take something apart, we can also rebuild. We can make something out of what we've made. We can replace the plants, as Joan is doing, or tell a different story, as Doris's clients are doing. Or we can just make something work again, or in a different way, like the cats are able to drink. So I hope that you'll bear that in mind as we go through what we're doing today. So I want to introduce you to this idea of recomposition, which is what I call what we're going to do. Just drop my pen. Oh, I'll pick it up later. So it comes from music. So my wife, as a composer, listens to a wide range of music. And a couple of years ago, she was listening to some recomposition works. So recomposition in music is when a composer takes an established work, or at least an existing work. An example is Four Seasons that's been recomposed, or Rhapsody in Blue, and they create their own new version of it. And in some cases, both of those examples, the Four Seasons and the Rhapsody in Blue, have been redone. In some places, the original and the new version are identical. You wouldn't know you were listening to anything different. But then in other places, the new version is quite different. Like the new version of Rhapsody in Blue brings in sort of Latin American drumming, for example. The Four Seasons repeats some parts and keeps loops going that Vivaldi didn't himself, and then other times creates something which is only very, very faintly connected, as far as I can see, to what, at least as far as my ears can tell, to what was in the original. I'm sure there's some source there, but it's also very much a new work by Max Richter, the composer. So I found this very, very interesting, the idea of taking something that we're familiar with and altering it. Might say bring it up to date in the case of those works as they're older, but bringing something new into something familiar and creating a kind of a hybrid, which has at least the echo of the original, but is also something that's unique to the composer who worked on it. So I thought, oh, how could that work in poetry? I like the idea of doing this, taking, as I said, something familiar, like a fabric that I know, and then finding a new way to kind of weave those threads, and find something else to say with it. And so I came up with this idea of recomposition, which the rules of which, quote unquote rules, I will show to you now. And whenever I say rules, what I really mean is tools, as in treat all my rules as things that can be broken and should be broken if you get the creative impulse to do so. So here's what I'm calling a recomposition, or as I'll explain in a minute, a strict recomposition. It's a new poem written using only the words that are in another poem. And you can only use each word as many times as it appears in the original poem. So it's not enough for the word fish to appear in the list of words that's in the original poem. If it appears once, then you can't use it 5 times. You can only use it once. At least these are my rules. So in other words, it's a poem which is fundamentally dependent on the poem that it's recomposing. because there's nothing you can bring into this poem that wasn't originally in the original poem. And that's the basis of it. There's no need. I decided that I didn't need to use all the words that were in the original poem, though, because I felt that that would tie me too closely to the original. So although I have this limit on what words I can use, I'm not making myself use all of them. What makes this different, I find, or from the idea of just having a sort of random word list and then making a poem out of that constrained list of words, which is something that's a good exercise. But what makes this different is trying to make your poem in some way talk to or talk back to the poem that you're writing, that you're recomposing, as well as being its own original work. So sometimes in Max Richter's Four Seasons, you can hear Four Seasons. Sometimes you can hear his own thing. So it's a little bit like that, kind of listening for an echo of the original poem, even in the one that you're making. I then made myself two rules that were frankly crazy, and if I were you, I'd ditch these ones pretty fast. But you're welcome to try them out if you like the kind of insane challenge that I enjoy. I like to end my poem on the same word as the original poem, because I feel that sort of ties the two of them together at the finish. And I also decided that I was going to keep the punctuation of the original as well, keep punctuation with the words it originally went with. That one in particular, I think you might find too restrictive and want to get rid of, but I'll just give it to you there. And finally, cheating definitely allowed. So I found myself wanting to use homophones, for example, and I decided that I was allowed to do that. So not quite as strict as it could have been. Okay. So that was what I decided to use as the method. And I'll show you now an example of what I did, but I want briefly to explain also why I was doing what I did, which was I wanted to find a reason for doing this, rather than just purely enjoying the exercise, which is, I suppose, enough of a reason. And I thought, well, it's a way of paying homage to a poem that you have enjoyed and that has influenced you, a way of responding to it, which is personal and yet also is obviously deeply integrated with that poem itself. And in particular, at the time I was doing this, my father had not long passed away, so I was very much in grief still. And I found myself wanting to go back to poems that had been important to me from my early days and rewrite them with a kind of perspective of grief. And I found that this sort of fitted for me, because when you're in grief, as you probably know, kind of you can look at everything and it seems to reflect grief. So that was my personal rationale. You don't necessarily have to have one. Your rationale could just be, well, I'm here in a workshop and you're making me do this. And that could be quite enough. But that was why I did what I did. So let me show you an example. I'll read the original poem first, and then my recomposition. So here's the original, which is a classic poem, The Voice by Thomas Hardy, written after his first wife died in 1912. Yes, when I'm teaching this to sixth form, to high school students, I tend to explain bits of it, but I'm not going to do that for you guys. The Voice by Thomas Hardy. Woman much missed, how you call to me, saying that now you are not as you were, when you had changed from the one who was all to me, but as at first, when our day was fair. Can it be you that I hear? Let me view you then, standing as when I drew near to the town where you would wait for me. Yes, as I knew you then, even to the original air blue gown. Or is it only the breeze, in its listlessness, travelling across the wet mead to me here, you being ever dissolved to one wistlessness, heard no more again, far or near. Thus I, faltering forward, leaves around me falling, wind oozing thin through the thorn from Norwood, and the woman calling. So a classic poem of grief for a lost partner, in which there is the sort of vision of the partner being there and then the double pain of that vision collapsing. Okay, and here's what I did with it. This is my recomposition. Falling again. Who is falling again? Only me, one thin voice. But I hear you saying you, 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 the breeze, you, the mist, you from me. You call it from, I call it far. And first, the one day when you dissolved, then I knew the thorn, the weight, the changed air, blue, calling. Okay. I just want to pause there for a moment and ask if anyone has any comments or questions at this stage.
I had a
Yes.
question, Brian.
Yeah.
When you said that, say the word frying pan is used, the words frying pan is used 5 times in a poem. In the recomposition, do you have to use it 5 times, or can it use it fewer than 5 times? As long as you don't use it more than 5 times.
The latter, yeah. 5 or fewer, but not more. Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, David.
Well, just a thought about this. I mean, I wasn't familiar with the Thomas Hardy poem, but in looking at what you've done with this, particularly in what we're seeing now in the middle of the screen, obviously there are many addresses to you in the original poem, since you're not using the word you more times than in the original. But what I'm seeing here is a great concentration of yous in the middle of the page, essentially, which yeah, it's perhaps a different kind of emphasis. It's certainly a heightened emphasis on the you, although that's obviously very much present in the original. So that's one thing that I'm noticing.
Thank you. Yeah. So again, that's obviously the yous are all present in the other poem, but it's a shift. So it is different emphasis in my own. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Yeah, Linda? Or were you just scratching?
No, this time I was really raising my hand. Was voice, so the name of the poem was The Voice, so voice was capitalized, and you decided to keep it capitalized, and it actually works. One thin voice, like I guess it works for me because I'm thinking that voice is very special and particular. But you could have not capitalized it, right?
Yeah. Depending on how strict I was being, yes.
Right.
In this one, I really wanted to set the bar high and see if I could get over it. So the punctuation is actually the same in the same places with respect to different words in my poem as it is in the original. So there's a you, comma, and the breeze, comma, in the original Hardy poem. I say that confidently. I'm pretty sure that's true. I don't think I messed with that. Yeah, there is one change I've made, one cheat. The original poem has wait, W-A-I-T. I decided that I wanted to use the homophone, so I messed with it, which I make no apology for at all because I invented it, so I can do what I want. But that's always true of us poets when we're writing stuff, isn't it? Okay, so I really enjoyed doing this. And I really loved finding my own topics inside the poems of the words of poems that I've really been interested in for a long time. I also really enjoyed how it sort of pushed me sideways into writing things that were, in the end, deeply personal to me, and yet I probably wouldn't have quite said it that way or wouldn't have come across it without the process of recomposition. Yes, Susanna.
I just have sort of a technical question. I'm sure there are lots of different ways to do this, but kind of physically speaking, how did you do this? Were you like checking off, did you have the paper written down and you were checking off the words as you went, or were you rearranging them on a Word document, or what worked for you?
Funny you should say that, because that was exactly what I was going to run through next. So yeah, let's go through process, and I'll try to give you a clear snapshot of, well, if those two things aren't slightly contradictory, an understanding of the process through a series of snapshots. So the first thing I did was this. I turned the poem into a list of words in alphabetical order, keeping all of the punctuation. And for those of you who sent me 3 poems before the class, this is what I then sent back to you. I have a short video on YouTube where I show myself doing this with a poem. So you can follow the steps on that link if I remember to put it in the chat later, which I'll try to. So I'd say this isn't essential, but I actually found it was essential, that if I didn't do this, I couldn't get away enough from the original.
Did you include the title?
Yes, the title is included. Yes, but not the by Thomas Hardy. That's gone, but the voice is definitely in there. And yeah, I found this was immediately breaking me away from the original. So, the original poem's still there, obviously, because it's got all the words, but there's other things start to show up just by their being next to each other alphabetically. So I started to work with this, and I looked to see what I had that was interesting that happened to be together, like traveling view, for example, or what we got here, much more near. Those 3 words might make something useful. And I started to jot down phrases like that was suggested by the words being close together. I also just wrote down anything that occurred to me, just picking words, letting my eye fall on words more or less at random across the page. So let me
Brian?
Yes.
Are the lists of words alphabetical for a reason?
It's just a way of disrupting the original. So okay. No reason beyond that, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
You could do them in a different random order if you wanted, I would say. Okay, so here are some initial jottings. They're not quite totally authentic because I was doing it by hand to begin with, but these are things that I typed up. So you can see me trying out sentences or tiny phrases, playing with questions, different ways of using a sentence beginning. And look, well, I'm actually starting to get into stuff that ended up in the finished poem here quite early on without realizing it at this point. So I'm still just experimenting, putting together a whole bunch of stuff. One of the things that I noticed about the word list was that the word you came up a great deal. And you'll find when you look at a word list for a poem, it does give you an interesting clue as to the central topics because of which words are used most often. Obviously, V and A tend to come up quite a bit, although not in all poems. But in this Thomas Hardy poem, the U was really dominant. So I noticed that and then decided to deliberately play with the U and see what phrases I might come up with that I could put a U into, especially at the beginning. And you can see that I created a lot, as many as I could think of. So I kept this going for quite some time. Didn't take me all that long to create this, but quite a lot of material, as you can see. And then I started a draft where I did not know where I was going to go when I got started. I just started to look among all of this material for phrases that seemed to go together. And I was searching for a theme or a topic that would echo the original at the same time. But I was also quite happy to use omission and juxtaposition and leaps to create things that felt strange at the same time as searching for what could also be some kind of a narrative structure. So a little bit of continuity, a little bit of intuition. And as I went through this, to answer the question that we started off here with, I crossed off words that I was using as I started to actually create something that looked like a draft. So my word list, I was actually crossing them off in pencil, but just to give you an idea, my word list started to look like this, with the words that I used being grayed out, and then the ones that I hadn't used, it still being in black. I think this might actually be the one that I finished up, the list that I finished up with from the final poem. I think it is actually. So
Brian, if this is a separate list, we're not seeing it, I think.
Oh, sorry. Did I share the wrong thing? Oh,
we're still looking at your draft. There we go.
Thanks, David. Yeah. Okay. This one. Yeah. You can see that there are a lot of words I didn't use. So no need to worry about that. You certainly don't have to use all of them. And I definitely use pencil because sometimes I would, use a word in the draft and I would cross it off the list, and then I would go, no, I don't want that, and take it back out of the draft, and I had to erase what I put down. So it was kind of complicated, but the results were I found very interesting, and I did it several times. Michelle, I'm sorry that you're leaving. Okay, right. So, does anyone have any more questions at this point about what I did? So I'm about to set you off.
I'm just going to ask if you would think about changing the form of the word. Like if it were happy, you went to happiness or something, related like that.
I tried not to, because I wanted to stay close to the original. But I think if the most important thing is to follow what it is that seems to be most productive for your creative impulse. So if there's something that's really getting in the way and you'd very much like to be able to change the tense or something like that, then all you're doing is just moving the poem that you're creating a little bit further away from the original, but the link will probably still be there. So that's again like the Vivaldi stuff, where you can sort of just about hear the Vivaldi in the background, but there's something more modern, more new in the front. Lenny.
Yeah, I'm going to imagine that your answer for my question is the same of what you just answered. But my question was, why use the number of times that you use any particular word, such as the you, or whatever the word might be? And I suppose you're going to say it's to keep it as close as possible to the original. Yeah.
Actually not in my case this time. You could certainly do that if you really want to honor a particular poem that has a word that's used a heck of a lot, and you want to do exactly the same.
But isn't that what you've done? That you've used the same, in other words, the word you'd, if it was used 5 times in the Hardy poem, for example, did you use it 5 times in yours?
I did actually end up using the you every time, exactly the same number of times. Yes. Yes.
And so would that be one of the requirements of the form?
No.
No? Okay.
I would say that for me, I just found that was really productive. I had lots of ideas using the you, and I was writing about my dad, so I wanted to just say you all the time. So that was why I used it. But it's an intuitive, creative decision, I think that. John.
Brian?
Yes.
Brian, how do you organize and alphabetize the word list if you don't have a computer that can do that for you?
Do you,
Then that's more difficult. Yes, Carla?
I was going to say, if you have a cell phone, you
No.
could just nothing. Okay. It makes it a little more difficult, but I just did it with AI and a poem, and it takes seconds.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
Oh,
great idea, Carla. Wish I knew more about AI. Good idea. Yes, that would be much quicker than me doing it.
Brian, did you do it in Word or Google Docs?
I did it in Word, yes. But Carla's quite right. Yes, AI would be able to do it in seconds and without any of the annoying fiddle that I had to do. Kim doesn't like AI, by the way. Okay. I think before I set you going, I want to just show you another example so that you've got more than one in your head and more than just my example as one model, models that you might use. So I'm calling this a looser recomposition because this doesn't follow all of the strict rules I gave myself. The writer in this case, whose name is Robin Peace, poet from New Zealand, she didn't ask herself to preserve punctuation, and the last word is not the same as in the original. So they're both a little longer, but I'll try and read them at a good clip. So this is The Journey of the Magi by T.S. Eliot. A cold coming we had of it, just the worst time of the year for a journey, and such a long journey. The ways deep and the weather sharp, the very dead of winter. And the camels galled, sore-footed, refractory, lying down in the melting snow. There were times we regretted the summer palaces on slopes, the terraces, and the silken girls bringing sherbet. Then the camel men cursing and grumbling and running away and wanting their liquor and women, and the night fires going out, and the lack of shelters, and the cities hostile, and the towns unfriendly, and the villages dirty and charging high prices. A hard time we had of it. At the end, we preferred to travel at night, sleeping in snatches, with the voices singing in our ears, saying that this was all folly. Then at dawn, we came down to a temperate valley, wet below the snow line, smelling of vegetation, with a running stream and a watermill beating the darkness, and 3 trees on the low sky, and an old white horse galloped away in the meadow. Then we came to a tavern with vine leaves over the lintel, 6 hands at an open door dicing for pieces of silver, and feet kicking the empty wineskins. But there was no information, so we continued, and arriving at evening not a moment too soon, finding the place it was, you might say, satisfactory. All this was a long time ago, I remember, and I would do it again, but set down this. Were we led all that way for birth or death? There was a birth, certainly. We had evidence and no doubt. I had seen birth and death, but had thought they were different. This birth was hard and bitter agony for us, like death, our death. We returned to our places, these kingdoms, but no longer at ease here in the old dispensation, with an alien people clutching their gods. I should be glad of another death. Okay, and here's the recomposition. Second Coming by Robin Peace. It was a different year. The women clutching the lintel, saying there was no ease from the cold, running with the wineskins to the camel men, grumbling and cursing. I remember wanting the slopes of sky to be silver and the towns to be silken, but the beating darkness was galled by my coming and returned to the old ways in snatches. 3 horses galloped with their alien gods below the snow line, and the summer stream that came down past the palaces was a folly. We were led down the valley in the dead time before dawn, wanting the voices of the villages and the singing from the taverns, but all was bitter and empty. And I was sore-footed after such a long journey. There was no sleeping, only my winter of doubt. I remember the dispensation of the evening, the shelters, the dirty prices, the unfriendly towns, the refractory people, and I knew I should be glad of the worst death. It would be satisfactory. it's just fascinating, isn't it? I love how you can hear and feel the other poem in the back of this, especially if you're familiar with it. But it is also Robin's own vision, and she has some really interesting images that have been made by putting together two things that were separate in the original, like where are the horses that have their gods? Three horses galloped with their alien gods, for example. You know, so it's a really fun opportunity to come up with some ideas just by playing with these word lists that otherwise you might not get to. Okay. So, are you all raring to go? You don't have to answer that. Yes, right. So your task is to take, if you sent me poems and I sent you word lists back, or if you're Carla and know how to use AI, take your word list that looks like my list of words from the Thomas Hardy poem. So it looks, oh dear, it's all blurry. I'll make it. I've got that stupid blur thing on. Okay, so anyway, the list of words that's in alphabetical order, and start. Well, you can do it however you want, really, but you're also very welcome to borrow the approach that I did. Start by just stringing some phrases together, just putting words together without thinking very hard about where they're going or what they mean. And let yourself create some things that are strange and some that are ordinary and normal. Yes, Linda.
Are we using our poem or one of our others?
Great question. Thank you for asking. Please use one poem and one of make it a poem by somebody else. So not your poem in this case. For people who haven't got this to hand, I'm going to message you something in the chat in a moment. So just start writing down ideas, don't worry too much about what they mean to begin with, but after a while, start looking for a theme or a topic that's coming up, and maybe something that echoes the original poem or maybe your own thing. And let that sort of grow, develop gradually, and see what you can put together. And sometimes you're going to run up against the word list and the limitations, and you're going to be really frustrated, but see if you can think of a super creative way to jump over that obstacle. Yes, David.
Just to say that I think now I will actually pause the recording, because who knows, at the end there might be more that we want to include, but I'll pause it now.
Okay. So at some point I was enjoying this process and creating, as you've done, fascinating things out of poems that by other people. And I thought to myself, what about if I take a poem of my own and do some of this stuff? So I want to show you a really quick example. It's a very short one of how that might work. So I have, here's my original and here's a recomposition. I'll read them quick. Under the bridge, a river. Late February, the whole of one winter white on the rocks, and between runs black water. Grey snow beneath is translucent, a breath. In the shallows, black stones shed ripples. One quivers, dips, then raises its head, opens its wings. And this, I like this poem. I don't have any particular problems with it, but I decided to recompose it and see what happened. So it turned into this. Winter wings. And beneath snow, a whole breath quivers. Translucent shallows, then white stones. The river runs under February's grey head in ripples between black rocks, its late bridge of shed wings. And what I found myself doing was just going a bit stranger in some places, like the bridge of shed wings, for example. And when I've done this on poems of mine in particular that I'm not happy with, I often find myself doing something a lot more exciting than the original, being a great deal more freed up than I was in the original draft. So, do you think it's too much to ask you to have a go at beginning a recomposition on a poem of your own in 15 minutes? Is that totally insane? Well, the whole process has been totally insane, hasn't it? So let's just do it. So take those of you who did the homework and sent stuff to me. You've got one of your own poems broken down into an alphabetical order. For anybody else, just grab a poem of yours that you've got, whether alphabetical or not, and try the recomposition and try to find the strangeness and the oddness and the conversation with yourself, and make unexpected and wonderful. Well, that's wonderful. Just make unexpected things happen. Okay. 15 minutes of intensive work starting now. As we're coming up to the 3 p.m. mark, I just want to mention a couple of things quickly in case people have to drop off at 3 o'clock before asking you how that went and maybe hearing a couple of examples, if people are happy to stay past 3, that is. So I wanted to say thank you very much, everybody, for coming and for doing this strange and hopefully wonderful, but maybe strange, maybe just strange stuff with me. If you're interested in doing or hearing more from me, then you could please go to my website. I've just put the link to that in the chat. I call it Poetry Place. I have a lot of articles there on different aspects of poetry, like form and technique and publishing your poems and creativity and that sort of thing. And I also want to mention to you something I do called Poetry Parlor, which is a monthly membership club where every month members, I choose a poem and then members meet with me on Zoom to talk about the poem and to see what we can learn from it. It's always by a contemporary poet. And then I set a prompt and they write poems and send them to me and I give them feedback. We have about 40 members. We are worldwide. We have people in Australia and Rome and all sorts of places, but also quite a good number from New England, which is not to say that we couldn't do with more. So I would, if you're interested in finding out more about contemporary poetry and learning more about poetry in general and getting more feedback on your work, then would love it if you would try that out. And in fact, I'd like to offer everybody here a discount code for Poetry Parlor, for a trial month at $15 instead of the regular $35. And this month we're doing centos or centos, which is not entirely different from what we've just been doing today. So if you would like to get that code, please put your email in the chat before you go, and I will send you the offer code by email. All right. Okay, so how was recomposing your own stuff? Any general thoughts about the recomposition process and how you might use it in future? Or yes, John.
It's a great exercise, and I expect to use and reuse it in the coming month.
Great. I love using it when I can't think of anything else to write. I'm feeling stuck. It's really fantastic because, you know, I just start with somebody else's words, and it puts me in touch with the excitement of poetry without my having to sort of have quite such without getting my engine revving quite so much at the beginning, and then I can sort of go off and do my own work again. So I find that very useful. All right. Well,
thank you very much.
Yeah, Brian, thanks for
thank you
for your generosity and time. It's great. Yeah, been very good. Yeah.
You're very welcome.
Yes, I will save the chat, by the way, Brian. And so, I mean, some people have put their emails in the chat, but I'll save it anyway, so I can.
That's great. Thank you. Yes, I think I'm also able to do that.
Yeah, you probably can, but.
So. Thank you so much. This was amazing. I really appreciated this so much. And thank you, David, for letting us know about it.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm glad to see you.
I will definitely be in touch with this whole process. And I live right near Sharon, Vermont.
Oh, I'm in Sharon, New Hampshire.
Oh, in Sharon, New Hampshire, I meant. Yeah. So, okay.
Where's Sharon, Vermont? I didn't know there was Sharon.
No, I'm in.
Nope, frozen.
From too much of anything, and maybe it is. All right. Thank you so much. This was really wonderful. Very well taught. So thanks.
Thank you, Doris. Nice to meet you.
Take care. Nice to meet you too. Bye-bye.
I appreciated this very much, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda, and thank you for putting me in touch with David. So make it
Me
happen.
too. It's fun to
Yeah.
see everybody
Indeed,
too.
indeed. I think I'm going to look into the poetry parlor.
Good
Oh
idea.
wow, that'd be amazing if you come and join us. Yeah.
I need something to kick my writing going.
It does that. I get you writing a poem every month. And
Nice.
that might not sound like a whole lot, but it goes around quickly. A month doesn't take that long.
Excellent.
Brian.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks a
All
lot.
right.
Bye.
Guess we'll sign off, but thanks. Take care, everybody. Have a good afternoon.
Okay.